And when you have to, all the directors have to initial all the shit when, 68? Are you fucking crazy? Yeah, so, and I've told them, I try to be as upfront as I can so they know what to expect. But you don't listen. See, they don't listen to that part. You just, and my mother once told me a long, long time ago when I was a kid, when the teachers used to call my uncle used to call my dad, and my dad would have to come down and talk to the principal or whoever, and all my dad would hear, Dan fucked up, Danny fucked up. Didn't matter what happened. 5 guys jumped me with clubs. Didn't matter. Dan broke the kid's arm, did this and that. I get a whooping, and if the nuns beat me, they didn't beat you good enough, so I'm going to give you a whooping too. But the nuns are actually nicer to me. But to this day, Danny, let me see your hands. Put them out like this. And the nuns used to hit you with rulers across the hands. To this day, I snap back from being hit in the hand so many times by the fucking rulers. And I was the last kid at my 50-year high school reunion. I gave an honorary swat, hit with a paddle, to one of my classmates who is a retired policeman. Because he or I, or a combination thereof, got one of the last corporal punishment beatings in Los Angeles School District, 1963. After that, you couldn't beat kids. But I got one of the last, or maybe he did, the retired cop. But they have me, ceremonially, they're taking pictures of the 50-year, and like this, and he's laughing. And he says, I ought to be hitting you, Dan. And so, but then you couldn't do it anymore. But, not too many, well, that was 50 plus years ago. And but that certainly wasn't the last beating I got. But from a teacher it was. You can't, teachers couldn't hit you anymore. But when my kid brother went back to the same junior high school I did, I took a class, and and you can, for those of you that'll be here, my kid brother's here in a few days, and he said, Vince Peña, and Vince raises his hand, you can't be related to Danny Peña, could you? It's not possible. So, oh yeah, my big brother? And he just looked down. And he said, are you sure you want to take this class? Because they naturally assumed he was maybe like I was. And teachers didn't necessarily want me in their class. And I told you about when I graduated. Yeah. 3 weeks before graduation, we're sitting in the senior quad, and I'm having a McDonald's hamburger. And our school was a lockdown. They locked us down. Everybody understand that? You couldn't leave campus. Okay, lock you down. And so the boys' vice principal, Hank Leeds, is walking by, and he says, and I'm sitting there with Walt, the big blonde guy that was on that picture, Ruben Munoz, who's now serving life for murder at Florida State Penitentiary, and myself. We're sitting there, and he says, where'd you get those goddamn hamburgers? So I said, we ordered out. They didn't deliver in those days. And so they said, you come to my office after the lunch period. So we went to his office, and he gave us our diplomas 3 weeks early and told us to get off campus. We don't want your kind on campus anymore. 3 weeks. And so at first we said, oh, fuck, great. Took the diploma, went down to a pool hall, and we're shooting 9-ball, which is a form of pool. After we had 7, 8, 10 pitchers of beer, Walt Wojak, who was the intellect of the three of us, hey, it's 1963. Martin Luther King is marching. They can't fucking throw us off campus. So we went back to the campus, and we busted into Hank Leeds' office, and we took our diplomas and threw them in his face and said, you ain't going to kick us off campus. And I said, allegedly, I'm going to burn this fucking school down. Allegedly, I said that. I have no recall of saying that. Okay. And we caused a lot of havoc on campus for those last 3 weeks before we graduated. And I was not such a great kid. When I get my books at the beginning of the semester, I put them in a locker. They still have lockers in schools? Okay, and you get 4 or 5 books. and I put them in the corner. And at the end of the semester, when gives the books back, there was a dust line around my books like this because I never moved them. I never took one home. I never picked one up. A dust line. And I graduated with a 2.55 average out of 4, which is kind of a C plus-ish. And by osmosis, because I never took the books home to do homework. And in class, I got, and I could sit there kind of half asleep. We used to go in the morning to a place called, I can't think it. We had Bloody Marys in the morning before school. And we go to this hamburger place, Hamburger Hamlet, which served Bloody Marys in the morning. And we'd have Bloody Marys in the morning, had 4 or 5 Bloody Marys. Then we go to class and sleep. And it's a miracle. It's a fucking miracle. That's some of you that are going to meet some. It's a miracle dance here. Okay. Back to Arya. I mean, we're happy that he helped us. We are knowing when to say no and getting rid of the potential board member. You'll need the support of your chairman. Mark wouldn't, but for the most part, all you kids don't have the level of sophistication to try to knock out somebody that has been there. And they may even laugh at you. Me out? Yeah, sure. And they'll make one call to the bank. That discussion we had about Powell, I think you were right. I think he should go. And then you'd be working on your next acquisition, your second one. Of course, they're going to love Hector, though. All these guys. Now, if he gets white people on his board, he's history. But if he does what I know he's going to do, he'll, they'll put a cap in his ass. They'll put a cap in his Chicano ass right quick. Any questions? Let's see, I'm going to cover one more slide before we break. No, that's good. We don't have to do that. We'll stop here. Anything else about, our Building a Dream team that was covered today? Now, tomorrow, 3 slides from now, where do you get the fucking money? How do you use the fucking money? What do you say about the fucking money? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And about 50 or 60 financial myths that you have been learned. Just as he told us on the call that the banks do it one way, the accountants do it one way, the lawyers do it one way, and his board wants to do it one way, and it's all the old-fashioned way. And you're going to be there showing them the new way. And the fact that Jamie, had 100% financing is not unusual. And we will show you how to overfinance the deals legitimately. I can add that word, I'll get a bunch of emails. And I've seen deals overfinanced 20-30% and without too much problem. If you do it the QLA way, not the old way. And once you get a bank that gets comfortable with financing deals your way, you stay with them. You don't be running off willy-nilly. The good news is he's talked to a lot of banks, and now we can go back. You had that party, which was a good idea. That wasn't my idea. It was his idea, where they came back. And what did they say to you?
Oh, we got the president of one of the banks that I talked to before. I didn't go with them, but the president came, and her daughter, and 2 guys came from one of the banks that was in the running. Like, they gave a letter of intent, but they didn't close. They were too slow, and they were still trying to kind of sweet talk us, and it was a great time. But from my perspective, I didn't need anybody to come. The whole point was getting the invitation with my happy face and the banker who won, their competitor. Yeah.
That's good. So it's a little bit of a needle. You should have taken me more seriously. You should have acted faster, et cetera, et cetera. And there are points of gamesmanship about this that you'll learn as you feel more comfortable that you would have never done before. especially the guys that, you know, have the professional finance backgrounds, especially the guys, the CFAs, MBAs, CPAs, and all that other horse shit, that because it would be considered outside the norm. But this is outside the norm. Remember, I talk about thinking outside the box. This whole process is outside the box. But you just heard it works in 2015. Although I started doing it in the 70s. And it's a lot easier now because you can get a lot more done. You could have never done what he did in 45 days to go shoe leather way. Not possible. Not possible. But because you're going to see all these people, and he flew back and forth between Los Angeles and New York 4 or 5 times. Excuse me. You know, and now I'm glad he moved there. Anything else?
I've got a question.
Sure.
We've asked a lot, talked about roll-ups quite a bit. Is there any other transactions we could use this stuff for?
You can use it for, you know, your own business. The methodologies, the leadership, the human resources or the lack thereof. Testing your employees. All these things work whether you do a roll-up or not. But the concept or the main platform is rolling up to accumulated, fragmented industries and selling up, taking it public, or franchising it. That's it. And doing it cash out and then do it again and then cash out and then do it again. He already talked about, doing it again. Because once the thing is up, let's say a year from now, it's $1 billion, whatever it is, there's going to be no need for him. Zero. I won't say zero, but it's nice to talk about the founders and bullshit, but there's no need. So his idea is he wants to do it. When I told him that people your age can do it 7, 8 times, his goal is, I think he wants to do it 10 times before he's through. And he's young enough to be able to do that. What happens is, like I told you, the first 50, 100,000 of any business you've started is geometric. What happens, and you have to watch yourself, is after you do it 1 or 2 times, you go into the default of the first time. And you aren't necessarily aware of the changing environment, the changing economic, and all this stuff. So when you try to do the third one using the first model that worked for you, and the world may have, depending on where you are, where are interest rates now, where this, where that. I told you when I looked at maybe the market has snapped back and we're back in a bull market. I don't know. But this morning, I hadn't looked at it. The market, looked pretty dismal. Everything was red, and people were talking about 30% down from the highs, 43% down from the highs, oil in the 40s. I don't know how it finished. Anybody look?
No. The American market wasn't down so far. The American market wasn't down.
That was oil spring back in the 40s?
Into the oil price.
Okay. Well, so we'll see.
I guess what I meant, say there was a public company that was trading what you thought was undervalued or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's like the public to private. 4 Seasons. I took a public company and I took it private, absolutely. And then you bolt on stuff, but then you sell it again.
Yes.
You do the same step, but then you sell it again. And there are occasionally public companies that are undervalued. But unless we have a sell-off in the market, most of the public companies are overvalued. Leading earnings on the Standard & Poor, these are American numbers, Standard & Poor, etc., leading or lagging earnings are 17 to 20 times earnings. It's tough to take a company public that it's undervalued. And then the tech companies are at 40, 50 times earnings, if they have any earnings at all. That's tough. You won't be buying any public companies at 4 to 6 to 7 times cash flow. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Okay. Good night, YouTubers. Thank you. Who's my first appointment?